Hello and welcome to the Cinema ATL Podcast. The Cinema ATL Podcast is a weekly podcast that examines the world of entertainment through the lens of local Atlanta filmmakers. That would be us, your hosts. I'm Michael D. Friedman, and that is
Martin Kelly.
And so, Martin, I don't know if you noticed or not, but Daylight Savings Time just ended this weekend, and we had to move our clocks back an hour. So, in honor of that fact that we all just time traveled back in time, we felt it would be fun to discuss our top 3 time travel films. But first, Martin, why don't you tell our audience how they can help the podcast out?
So you're telling me we needed to move our clocks back? What happened?
Yes. That's why we were delayed in getting this podcast out, because you didn't set your clock back.
My bad. But what you can do to help us remember this kind of thing is to comment, rate, and subscribe wherever you listen. And you can do that at Apple Podcasts, on iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and YouTube even.
Yes, and we also want to hear from you. You can always tweet us at CinemaATL or our personal accounts, which are mine is at Clever Transient.
Or you can hit me up at Marte_real1.
And don't forget our Instagram, which is at CinemaATL Podcast, all one word.
Definitely. Or, you can catch us on the web, the old school web, cinematl.com.
Yup. So we're going to get into our top 3 time travel movies. Let's just get on into it.
Okay, so we're going to talk about a top 3 list, and every time we do a top 3 list, we want to remind you that this is just our opinions, and we're not trying to be, we're not trying to be scientific about this list. This just happens to be our list of this time frame, this non-daylight savings time frame, and we reserve the right to change our opinions at will.
Yes, this is just what we're thinking right now. If we went back in time, we might have a different list. Or if we go into the future, it would probably be different as well. And so let's just start out. We're going to list our top 3 first, and then we'll discuss why we picked them. And then after that, we'll talk about some honorable mentions that didn't quite make our lists. And so we'll start at the bottom. Martin, what is your number 3?
Well, I'll preface this whole thing with saying, I think there's some out there that I'm forgetting, because I love time travel movies, actually. But this is my top 3 for right now. And my number 3 is Donnie Darko.
Cool. I love time travel movies, too. In fact, as I was putting together this list, I was like, wow, there's a lot of time travel movies. I had to cut down on a lot of stuff. And so I cheated. Number 3 is a tie for me. Number 3 is Palm Springs and Groundhog Day.
Man, that's great. That's a great tie, and that's one I might have put on there, and I totally forgot about that one already, even though it was a good movie, Palm Springs. So my number 2 we're getting to is probably the classic, and maybe collectively everyone's favorite time travel movie, Back to the Future.
All right. My number 2 is Edge of Tomorrow, also occasionally known as Live, Die, Repeat.
Yes, the tagline, for sure. That's a good one. It's an action sci-fi movie, so that's cool. My number 1 is 12 Monkeys.
Ooh, cool. My number 1 is your number 2, Back to the Future. So you are all right. It's a lot of people's favorite.
It's hard to really, keep that from being the number 1, because it's such a classic, and certainly it's kind of set the rules for time travel movies, especially in comedy, I think.
Right. All right. So those are our top 3. So why don't we discuss them in a little bit more detail? So we actually have 6 movies, because you and I picked the same one, but then I also cheated and took 2. So
yeah, you pulled my move. I'm always doing ties, right? But you did ties this time. So yeah. I guess let's talk a little bit about, we've got a couple of different categories here. We've got the serious ones, and then the comedy ones, I think. So
right.
Maybe let's talk about we'll talk about because it's your number 1, so we probably should save it and talk about it together.
Well, so why don't we just start at the bottom, and I'll talk about my number 3.
Okay, sounds good.
So yes, I had a tie, and they're really very similar movies, which is kind of why I justified doing it. Palm Springs, for those of you who haven't seen it, came out last year. It was on Hulu, I believe,
Hmm.
and stars Andy Samberg and Kristen Milioti. And it's about a man who is stuck in uh, one, uh, a 1 day loop and can't get out of it. And he's in Palm Springs for a wedding, and it's the same thing as Groundhog Day, where Bill Murray is stuck in a 1 day loop and can't get out of it. And both of them, every time they go to bed or die or whatever, they wake up the next time at the same time they originally were in it. And I like both these movies just because they're just really funny, and the humor really carries the days in both of the movies. Bill Murray is fantastic in Groundhog Day, and it is one of my favorite movies, and I love to watch it over and over again. So it's almost like I'm stuck in a time loop. Um, and
No,
then,
and yeah, yeah.
go
I
ahead.
think
Go ahead.
they're both great movies, and they're both very fun. But
Right.
the time loop is like it's a genre unto itself. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so it's a great device, and especially for comedy, I think it works. It works. It works for both. It works for both. But yeah,
Yeah.
these two are really cool. Really cool.
And yeah, so like Palm Springs just feels kind of like a modern day update of Groundhog Day to me, and it's really the leads that carry these both of these films, and you get a lot of humor based off the fact that they're reliving the same day over and over again, and then they start becoming, almost like, as Bill Murray says, I'm not the God, I'm saying I'm a God.
Right. Right.
um,
Right.
they become like almost all knowing and all powerful, and but yet they're still stuck in this situation they can't get out of, and the humor really derives on them just kind of slowly descending into madness and then accepting their fate, and then figuring out a way out of that loop. And
Right. No, yeah, yeah. It's such a great like I mentioned, it's such a great device because like you mentioned, you have this duality of omnipotence, which does omnipotent powers because you know everything about this loop that you've been in and lived so long, and then yet you can't escape it. So it's like being being a master of this time space, but only a master of this time space and a prisoner of it at the same time. So
right.
it really helps to create a lot of human emotions and runs the help you run the gamut. So it's always a fun thing. And
And I,
these are
and I
both
will say,
great.
I will say what elevates Palm Springs a little bit over Groundhog Day is that there are two people stuck in this loop, so it's a little bit of difference. And Kristen Milioti is really terrific in Palm Springs, and
Oh,
she was
absolutely,
just
yeah.
like a revelation to me. Like I not. I mean, I've seen her in other things, but she's always been like really minor characters. I think she's like the the girl that that the lead character pines over in How I Met Your Mother. Like, but she's
Right.
like not. She's not even. She's only in a few episodes of that. That's where I most recognized her from. But she's really great in this, and I think she's a great comedic talent and just a great actress in general, because there's some there's a lot of emotion that goes through this movie, and I know she had an HBO Max series I haven't seen, but I want to see more from her.
Yeah, yeah, totally. She was terrific in this for sure, and I do think there's a big future in store for her. Especially, her comedy chops are great, but you're like you said, she also gives a great all around performance as well. So, no complaints on this. This is a fantastic choice for your number three.
All right, so number three for you.
So, number three for me is Donnie Darko, which is it doesn't fit quite into that same category of time
Right.
loop. It's a really unique story, and part of it, part of it revolves around time travel and in the future versus the past and the possibilities of what is to come. And it stars Jake Gyllenhaal. I think his debut, if I'm not mistaken.
It's
Um,
if it's not his debut, it's definitely one of his early roles. But
but
and
definitely,
Maggie Gyllenhaal's in it too,
yes, yeah,
as his sister.
as his sister.
So,
Yeah, exactly. And so, but a terrific cast, a terrific storyline.
terrific
Really
soundtrack too.
wonderful soundtrack for sure. And then all the strange, all the strange things that happen make this thing so surreal, and you don't really know for sure that it deals with time travel right away until it
Right.
evolves as part
For a
of the
bit of a
storyline.
spoiler alert, but yeah,
Well,
I don't
we're
think we're
naming
giving
it
a
a time
lot
travel.
away.
Yeah,
Right.
we're naming a time travel movie, but the fact that it's not really a spoiler because at some point if you go in thinking it's a time travel movie, you'll be waiting for it like right away, and you won't get to it right away. It just develops slowly. But
Right.
again, just an atmospheric, really cool indie thriller kind of. It's kind of a thriller, I guess you could say, but fantastic movie, great cast, just unique. It's one of the, it's part of the more like unique time travel kind of movie that that has kind of risen in the in the last
Right.
couple of decades. But again, just if you've never seen it, you ought to check it out because it's certainly an original.
I really like Donnie Darko too, and in fact, it was on my honorable mention list. So, yeah, so I definitely love that movie, and it just missed out for me. So
Cool.
number two for me was Edge of Tomorrow. We talk about time loops again.
Yes. Mhm.
This one is a time loop one again. It's a little bit different in the fact that the character doesn't live the same day over and over. They live basically the rest of their life over and over again, basically. But um, it's an action film. It stars Tom Cruise. He plays the main character, Major William Cage, who gets there's an alien invasion going on, and humanity is being overrun, and he gets demoted and sent to the battlefield where he dies in action because he's not an experienced soldier. He is a
He's a
PR agent.
PR. Yeah, exactly.
And so like when he gets dropped into this situation, the action is like super intense. It's like sci-fi, like near sci-fi, right? So it's like close to current day. But the action's crazy. The alien designs that they have are like nothing I'd ever seen before, and they're generally like frightening creatures. And he gets killed in action, and then he wakes up. You know, I think it. I don't remember the time periods that he wakes up, but it's pretty much like the day before, and so he has to go through these same events over and over again, and he gets thrown into this action and starts getting a little bit more and more competent, knowing what's going to happen. But he never. It's not like Palm Springs or Groundhog Day because he never becomes godlike. He doesn't have all the answers because it's such a chaotic
Right.
situation, and he
Right.
never learns enough to become super powerful. So and then so he ends up finding Emily Blunt's character, who is like a big hero in the war, who managed to defeat a bunch of aliens, and she's got some stuff of her own going on that I'm not gonna spoil.
Right.
And she's terrific in this movie as well. Emily Blunt's great in it, and as well as the whole cast actually, and Bill Paxton and Brendan Gleeson stand out as good cast members too. But it is an intense movie, and it's just so much. It's fun too. It's like it's not just all it's action, but it's like there's a lot of comedic elements that occur because of the situation he's put in, and because he's the only one that knows what's going on, and he tries to tell them what's going on, but nobody believes him, and he has to do it all over every day again. And I just really love the movie. I think it's really great and great action film.
Definitely, it's a great action film. I agree with you. Terrific performances by everyone involved. The loop is a little bit different. What's unique about the loop in this one is that the loop is various time
Right.
frames. Like with Palm Springs and Groundhog Day, it's a full day, right? It's kind of a definitive set time loop. Whereas this one, it starts in one place, but you don't know where it ends. It could end like 50 seconds into it, or
Right.
it could end, 3 days into it at some point, but it always ends and he ends up in the same place every time. So it was a unique take on that time loop concept.
Yeah.
So I like
and he
that
ends
too.
up dying violent deaths every time too. So it's kind of
Yes,
crazy that way.
exactly.
So
Exactly. But yeah, terrific film, very imaginative. So I did enjoy that one a lot. So before we talk about my number 2, your number 1, let me talk about 12 Monkeys, because it's another serious kind of serious kind of time travel movie, and it's very unique too because it was Terry Gilliam who directed it, and it is very original. The the future is so desolate and crazy, and they send. The story revolves around a desolate future where humans have to live underground, and because of some kind of pandemic,
oddly
uh,
enough.
oddly enough, that wipes out most of the population, and they can't live above ground anymore. And so the people below are trying to figure out a way to come back to the surface, and so they're trying to send people back in time to stop this disease from spreading. And so, you know, Bruce Willis plays the soldier who kind of gets forced into duty, and so he pops back up, in like what at that time was our modern day, right, the '90s,
Mhm.
and just like again, I don't want to spoil it in case you haven't seen it because it's a lot of twists and turns to it, but it's very well put together. Again, with the terrific performances, you got Bruce Willis at the top of his game. You got Brad Pitt, who has a really wonderful turn in the film.
Yeah.
Madeline Stowe, who is so underrated. She's such a awesome actor, and so good in those days for sure. And terrific performance all around. And again, a super original storyline, and very heartfelt at places. Some moments in it are really tug at the heartstrings in terms of what we don't appreciate about what we actually have, right now. You know what I mean? And that's the kind of
Yeah.
thing that I think is the message in the stories. Like we really just need to appreciate what we actually do have. So, because Bruce Willis, coming from this desolate future, can't wait to get back to the past because of how wonderful it is compared to his current situation. So, I think it teaches a lesson about like let's appreciate the now.
Yeah, and I will add that Brad Pitt is phenomenal in this movie. This is the movie that made me think that, oh wow, Brad Pitt is a really good actor, and I really, really, really woke me up to Brad Pitt and his talent, and I think he's great in this. And one thing I do like about it is that it's told in a non-conventional way that you don't really know
Yes.
if it's true or not, right?
Right.
So
Exactly.
you don't know what's real and what's not, and it is this in his head? Is it real? Like who knows? Like, and so it makes you think a lot. Yeah, I really really appreciate 12 Monkeys.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's great. So if you've never seen it, you ought to check it out, folks.
And then, so the final movie we can talk about is my number 1, your number 2, Back to the Future. I'll start on this one. I think everybody pretty much knows the story of Back to the Future, so I'm not going to like recap it, but I just talk about why I like it so much. I saw this movie when I was 11 years old in the theater, and it was just such a fun ride, and it captured my imagination so much. And I love it because it doesn't really delve too much into like the mythos of time travel, but it's just a fun movie about a kid encountering his parents when they were his age, and learning about family and appreciating, what you have, and the time that you live in, and not, living the now instead of, wondering what things could be. So it just got a really good story behind it. It's got a nice message behind it. I love how they captured the design of the film so well, like taking this town from the 80s and bringing it back to the 50s. The details are just really good.
Yeah.
I love some of the little things they have in it, like when at the beginning of the movie, he's at Twin Pines Mall, but later in the movie, he crashes into one of the pine trees that's there before the mall exists. And then all of a
Yes.
sudden, when he comes back, it's called Lone Pine Mall, which is like, so it's just like those little things. They got those little details just so perfect. And
Absolutely.
I just love
Absolutely.
it. And Michael J. Fox is just perfect as the main character. And thank God they recasted Eric Stoltz out of that role because
Totally.
it would have
And
been totally different.
Eric Stoltz is cool, but he was no
Right.
way Marty McFly.
He
There's
was
no
not
way.
the. Have you seen the movies that made us? They did a episode on Back to the Future, and they actually had some of the footage
I
from
did.
when Eric Stoltz
Yes.
was in it, and you can tell it's like, yeah, he was not working, and thank God they
Yeah.
decided to pull the plug.
Definitely, because Michael J. Fox was at the top of his game at that time. He's such a likable, winning personality and perfect for that character. Crispin Glover was perfect for his role as well, and then Christopher Lloyd was fantastic as Doc. I mean, what a iconic character he is. And you can't say enough about how fun the movie is. Like you said, I saw it when I was a kid too, so a lot of fond memories of it. For that reason, because it was a perfect popcorn movie. This is the perfect popcorn movie.
Right.
And
don't forget about Leah Thompson too, who was great as his mom. Yeah,
absolutely. But yeah, totally cool movie, totally fun. And you're right, it makes just enough sense time wise, time travel wise, to not make you think about it and let you just enjoy the fun, the fun loving story, and so many like little iconic things, that Robert Zemeckis actually does in a lot of his movies. When he's doing comedy movies, like when he meets one of my favorite scenes is when he meets the cousin of Chuck Berry.
mm-hmm.
and the cousin's like, Chuck, you got to hear this, and of course it's because nobody had heard, of the famous Chuck Berry tune, "Go Johnny Go" at the time, and Marty was playing it, and kind of hinting that maybe that was the inspiration, and really, like I said, funny little touches like that, like you mentioned, the Lone Pines Mall, that kind of thing. So fun movie, and again, classic time travel.
Some of the jokes don't land anymore with the 80s references, but like, give me a Pepsi free. It's like, if you want a Pepsi, kid, you're gonna have to pay for
it. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's almost like it's funny now because it's older. Like the time he goes back to is longer now, like from when we're living now, it's back to the 80s. So
yeah,
like it would be interesting to see like a reboot of Back to the Future where the kid comes from now and goes back to the 80s. That'd be kind of a fun little twist. Yeah,
totally. I think you just pitched it.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm not the first one to pitch that.
Well,
there you go.
You're the only one with a podcast platform.
Yeah, because we're the only podcast out there.
That's true. So do you want to recap first or do honorable mentions before we recap?
Let's recap. So my top three are from the bottom up. Number 3 is a tie. Palm Springs and Groundhog Day. Number 2 is Edge of Tomorrow. And number 1 is Back to the Future.
Mine are from bottom up. Number 3, Donnie Darko. Number 2, Back to the Future. And number 1, 12 Monkeys.
All right, so let's talk about some honorable mentions. I had Donnie Darko, of course, on my list. And speaking of other like kind of more serious movies, I also had Looper.
Nice, yeah,
which is
good.
another Bruce Willis time travel movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually don't remember a lot of the details from it because I saw it in the theater and I haven't seen it since. But it was a really great movie, and I probably should watch it again. Another one is Deja Vu with Denzel Washington. That one's interesting because it takes a little bit different twist. Is that they're not actually traveling through time, but they're seeing in
the
time,
future,
back in time. They're seeing
back
in time.
Yeah,
and he's a detective trying to figure out this murder case and find out what happens. But they've got technologies that allows them to kind of go into the past and walk around and see what happened in the past, but they can't interact. So it's it's a different take on it, and I thought that was pretty original. And then two other films I have on the comedy side are Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure,
Nice.
classic,
Mhm.
and then Idiocracy, which
Yes.
didn't occur to me that it was a time travel movie as much as, it is. I mean, the whole point of it is he travels in time, but it's more about the comedy and how stupid people have become in the future,
Yeah.
than the actual time travel premise to it, right?
Right. In the premise, I think the premise is not necessarily true to time travel because they actually just get locked away, and
Right.
they were around. They just didn't know they were around
That's
until
true.
much
He
future. So
travels through time, but he's like
yeah,
cryogenically frozen and not really. It's not like they send them forward in time, but yeah,
right. Exactly. So,
yeah,
but it's cool. I love the movie. I do love the movie. So I'm gonna make mine a little briefer. I'm not even gonna describe one because everybody knows it. The Terminator.
yeah.
Good time travel movie. Um, One is called About Time, which is like a romantic comedy time
Yeah, I've heard
travel
of that
movie.
one. I've never seen it, but I've heard of it. It's
Very
good.
good. Domhnall Gleeson and Rachel McAdams. Fantastic movie. And I won't talk about it too much. He can travel to different places in time. He's got this ability, and it's very unique. And so again, another unique story, but really cool and told around set around like a love story. So that's really cool. But then one is super old. I mean, super old. Fantastic movie though, and it's probably been forgotten in time. And it's called Time After Time.
Yes. I remember that movie. It's
And
about
this,
the about H.G. Wells actually built the time
yes,
machine. What if he actually
yes,
built the time machine and he travels after Jack the Ripper?
right. He travels into the future following Jack the Ripper because
Right.
Jack the Ripper discovers the time machine and uses it to escape London, where he's almost captured for his serial killings. And then he travels into the future, and then H.G. Wells has to travel after him to try and stop him from continuing his killing spree in the future. And along the way, of course, he meets a young woman from the future who thinks he's kind of funny because
Yeah.
nobody in the future can believe they're from a different time. But wonderful movie, Malcolm McDowell, Mary
Yeah.
Steenburgen.
Yes.
Really cool movie, and again, it's got thrills and chills because it's a thriller in one way, and of course a love story in another way. But again, just
And a
one.
bit of a comedy too, like you said.
And
It's the
yes,
comedic elements.
there's a lot of comedic elements in it too. So I thought that was a really good one for back in the day. So if you're looking for a really old movie, you want to check that one out.
That's a forgotten film for me. We might need to do that in forgotten films. I loved that movie when I was younger.
I totally loved it too. Yeah, so I couldn't leave it off the list.
Good call. Good call. A movie. I have a dishonorable mention.
Okay.
My dishonorable mention is the Tomorrow War.
Well, I think the Tomorrow War was
Such a
trying to be Edge
disappointing
of
movie.
Tomorrow. I think it was trying to be Edge of Tomorrow in
Such a
certain
disappointing movie.
ways. But okay.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna. It is what it is. I'm
The
not gonna
premise
really.
of it was cool, but they just failed one bit after another. So,
Well,
like,
certainly
cannot
not
recommend
worthy.
it.
Not worthy of our list for sure.
No. Well, all right. That does it for our top 3 time travel movies. Let us know what you thought. Let us know what other top 3 lists you might want us to discuss. We'd love to hear from you. Also, please share this podcast and tell your friends about it. The more you share, the
Absolutely.
more people will listen and the more we can do.
Absolutely.
And once again, I want to thank Eureka Failure for providing the music as they do each and every week. I really appreciate their stuff, and check them out at eurekafailure.bandcamp.com or any streaming music service that you listen to.
Absolutely.
So, Martin, before we go, what are your final words of wisdom?
Well, I just want to say happiness is an inside job. Don't assign anyone else that much power over your life.
Good call. Good call. Don't let Denzel Washington hide in your bank. No, wait, that's not. It was Clive Owen. Don't let Clive Owen hide in your. Don't be
That's
an
right.
inside job. We don't want it to be. Wait, it is inside job. I've lost my metaphor. Yeah. All right, so that's it. We'll see you again next time on the Cinema ATL podcast. See ya.